Hello, my name is Sofika Dimitrition, and I am excited to introduce our panelists for the Management Alumni Panel today. Before we begin the panel, I would like to acknowledge that Dalhousie University is located in the Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. We are all treaty people. Our panelists today are Laura Kieley, the founder and president of the Practice Energy Movement Center, Jen McCain, president of Irie Capital Corporation, and Sagar Sahota, data insight analyst at Watzan. I'm now going to open it up to our panelists as they can tell us a little bit more about their journey from a Dalhousie Management graduate to where they are today. Sagar, why don't we start with you?
I'll keep mine short and sweet. My name's Sagar Sahota. I graduated from the Bachelor of Management program in 2019. I currently work for a startup in Halifax by the name Watzan. It's a Data Insights Analyst. I'm still in the early part of my career and figuring things out along the way.
Great, thank you. Jen, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. First off, thank you for having us all today. We're excited to kick off this conversation. My name is Jen. I'm the president of Irie Capital Corporation, which is a small privately held venture firm. I invest primarily in the pet services space. In addition to being a Dal grad, I graduated in 2012, so it's now been a decade. If I look over the past decade, I've had a journey, to say the least. Started in consulting. I've been on several boards, went back to school, did my MBA, started Irie Capital, and also sit on the holding company board of my family business at McCain Foods. So wear a couple different hats and excited to share those learnings with everyone today.
And lastly, Laura, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks. My name is Laura Kieley, and I graduated from the management program in 2009, and like Sagar, very much still trying to figure things out. But along my journey here, I've done very kind of a diverse aspect of like running businesses, project management, kind of everything that integrates into that. And along the way, I took my yoga teacher training. And so now I own and I am the founder of The Practice, which is a movement studio in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I'm so excited for this discussion. So I'm first gonna ask Sagar, how would you describe your leadership style?
So my leadership style is, I'll give a great quote from one of my professors. It depends on the situation, right? But however, if I have to choose exactly one, I say it would be coaching. I often try to build up others and give them like the necessary tools to be successful, and that kind of comes from my sports background. But when you kind of join the workforce, you quickly begin to realize not everyone works with you is motivated by the same things as you are, or is passionate about the subject matter as you are. So sometimes you have to adjust your leadership style depending on who you're working with. And sometimes, great leaders know when to lead, but also you got to know when to follow.
Yeah. And I feel like with sport, that teaches you so much too. Laura or Jen, would you like to add anything on?
I think that was well said. I also have a sort of a sports orientation. The teamwork part of leadership. You can only lead if you have a team. You're only as good as your team. And in short, it depends, and it's evolving.
Yeah. Laura, what would you say your leadership style is?
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. I would say it's interesting, right? It does change over time, but I would say currently it's through empowerment. So the people that you're working with, you kind of have to find that gold within someone and figure out what their motivation is. And once you figure out what their motivation is, it's very much, instead of being a top-down leader, it's okay, how can I get this person? How can I support this person into showing up for as much as they can today? How can I empower them to provide as much as they can within their means today? And so I think that kind of ties in all together. It depends, of course, on day to day, and everyone is not going to be bringing their A game every single day. So it's more of, okay, recognition of where this person that I'm working with is at this moment in time, and how can I empower them to fully show up as they are.
Yeah, and I love that because I feel like we're all motivated in different ways, if that makes sense. So the next question that I will be asking is, how did your personal values and vision influence your career choice? So Jen, if you would like to start.
Sure. To summarize, especially in terms of leadership style, that also is evolving, right? You develop a certain set of values as you grow and through lived experience. But in terms of sort of what I guide as a principle is that everything I do has to have some purpose ingrained in the approach, and I try and bring that purpose and live that through whatever venture or business or enterprise I'm involved with. Because I fundamentally believe like that is a critical part of our generation is very purpose conscious and oriented, and so that's something that is woven into everything that I do.
I love that. Sagar, would you like to add on?
Yeah, of course. I think my personal values and like vision about my career kind of really it stems from like my personal upbringing. So I take calculated risk and always seek opportunities. My father immigrated to Canada in the late 80s and early 1990s. And so, you have to imagine like leaving the comforts of home, hopping on a plane and flying halfway around the world, right? It's not easy as like technology as it is to keep in touch with friends and family, right? He used to have to go to corner store, buy those prepaid phone cards and call home, right? For long distance charges and stuff. And so, my dad always kind of taught me like, stuff will work out. You just have to weigh the pros and cons and seek the opportunities that fit best for you and keep moving forward. And that's kind of led me into like a variety of directions as a career path. And eventually, you will figure out along the way, and you just got to have like that faith in yourself and that kind of that gusto to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I love that because I feel like if you don't believe in yourself, then that's it. Like, because at the end of the day, you kind of have to be there for you and know that you can achieve and accomplish your goals.
Yeah, like I 100% agree, and especially like as a newish grad, right? I've only been in the workforce for 2 years, and the world's drastically changed with the pandemic and stuff, right? So there's sometimes there's a lot of battling imposter syndrome, but at the end of the day, people look at you to be the expert in the subject matter that you say you are, right? And you got to like I always kind of use this quote where it's like you got to be your biggest fan and not your biggest critic, right? Because often you're harder on yourself than you are on other people, and what people perceive you is like how you perceive yourself is not necessarily how people perceive you.
Yeah. And would you say that in those times that it can occasionally be challenging to ask for help?
I think so. It depends on the personality type. For me, like I'm very like team oriented again from my sports background. Like, I want to pick people up, and when it's my turn to get some help, right? I want to be, also feel like there's wind underneath my wings rather than them being clipped by like, superiors or subordinates and such, right?
Yeah.
And it's definitely situational. And, my biggest advice for like new grads, like don't be afraid to ask for help, even if it's a simple task, right? Like you'd rather do it correctly the first time and get some help than keep making the same silly error over and over again. Yeah.
And lastly, Laura, how do you feel that your personal values kind of influenced your career choice?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that integrity is one of the greatest values that one can bring through any situation that you're in within the workforce. If you're looking at kind of like jobs versus careers, you can bring integrity to any realm of whatever it is that you're bringing to the table, and how that's kind of integrated its way into my career path. You feel resistance when you're not aligned in a situation. You feel that like anger and frustration, and there's this wall that you keep hitting, or maybe it's that job that you keep trying to get a promotion for and you just never get there, right? It's the integrity of who you are on the inside that will help you decide what is best for you in that moment. And I think in this, as Sagar mentioned, like in this kind of realm of where we are in this landscape, in this environment that we're in, I don't think it's been any more highlighted that you really do need to look within yourself and see what aligns with you, because our health, our mental health, our physical health are the things that don't last forever. So we have to make sure that we're living our lives as best we can with those things in mind.
Yeah. And I feel like especially now in like society today, like that can get hard with like, especially being young with like external factors like other people and stuff like that, and kind of like reminding yourself like who you are, like what are my goals, and kind of like, bringing yourself back to like who you truly are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Next question. Ooh, I like this one. How has mentorship played a role in helping you achieve your goals? Jen, would you like to start off?
Yeah. I think mentorship is a really big topic, and you can either be a mentor or a mentee, and I'm kind of walking both paths. As someone who's mentoring, I try to bring out the best in everyone, and everyone has a certain skill set that really shines through, and trying to nurture and empower that and honor that integrity is really important, and try and really encourage everyone to be themselves, because that's the person that's going to have the most success in whatever venture or whatever road they go down, is being themselves. I think we're talking a lot about quotes. What's the quote? Yourself, because everyone else is taken.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good one.
Yeah, so I think encouraging everyone to be themselves, and then as a mentor, that's really important to foster that kind of authenticity. And then as you're receiving advice, remember that mentors have a certain set of experiences, and that's a direction, and it's important to honor and acknowledge that direction, but it may not be the same direction you go down. So it's also important to recognize what they do and how they did it, and what they didn't do and why you should do it. So that also speaks back to going back to yourself and being able to look in the mirror or look at yourself on Zoom, as we have for the past 20 months, and really be comfortable with who you're looking at, because that's the person who's going to show up at work. That's the person who's being hired. And that's the person that you get to pat on the back at the end of the day and say, you've done a good job and you did it in a very authentic way.
Yeah. And I love that, because again, kind of going back to like this generation and all that I think a lot of students feel that they need to fit into this mold that like does this, does that, and achieves these goals. And at the end of the day has, checked off all these things on a checklist. And I really like that you kind of say like being your authentic self, and like, at the end of the day, giving yourself the pat on the back, because, yeah, maybe you did all these things, but you kind of have to be there for you and be like, maybe I didn't do what this other person did, but I did, what was enough for me. And, I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Laura, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. It's very interesting, Jen. I just didn't even think about the aspect of being a mentor. I only thought about being the mentee, even though we're running a program that is called the mentorship program within this studio. For some reason, I didn't identify with that necessarily until you just mentioned it. You're like, you could be a mentee or a mentor. And I was like, oh yes, I can be that.
In this capacity right now.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for bringing
No
that.
No problem. Here to help.
It's interesting because I was thinking about this, and I don't have a direct mentor, and I never really have, but I've had people that I've gone to advice for, or I've seen people in positions that I wanted to emulate or wanted to see that like growth opportunity within myself. And so I would never shy away from asking questions or taking someone out for coffee and picking their brains and kind of seeing where they are. I'm still looking for that. I think I've idealized this person who's like maybe telling me all the right things to do, right? And I've had to kind of circle that back and say, okay, here are people that I admire. Here are the qualities about them that I really admire and that I want to be more of, like. And I've kind of paved my own path that way. But then in terms of being the mentor, it's very much, again, back to empowerment, back into like, I like it like you're the cheerleader for the person to be like, you know what, you showing up, that's 100% today. Like, that's perfect. Like, that's all you need to be. It's when you see that divergence from someone being authentic, that's when you know that, okay, this person just needs a little bit of guidance in this aspect, and then they're going to be fine. But I think it's a confidence piece too, right? It's people are, I mean, within this realm, we see so much of what's going on with other people, the FOMO situation, right? It's, I need to look like this. I need to be like this. I need to do this. And that will make me happy. No, I can tell you from experience, no. So I really like the role of a mentor in terms of it's the person who supports and guides you. And so I think that's so vital with not just within like our career paths, but just like in our lives. I think that's really important role.
Yeah. And I also love how you kind of said that you didn't exactly have like a mentor, but you almost had a mosaic of people that you would kind of turn to. And I feel like that's, you don't really hear that so often. Like, you hear so many people say, oh, like I had like one or two people, but to hear that you had an array of people that you kind of grasped onto different things, like that's really cool. And I love hearing that. Anyways, Sagar, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think like mentorship has played an immense factor in my career path. You know, a lot of my mentors are from like a diverse background. It's not just one singular person, right? Like to the most notable person I can't really mention by name due to privacy reasons. He's a general manager of a professional sports franchise in like one of the major leagues, and I had the opportunity to meet him at a conference and kind of like network and pick his brain and constantly keep in touch. Um, then you know it goes to like even like my siblings or my circle of friends that whom I have like trust with and like kind of like my support network and system. And I find that you know you you have an issue or a question in your life or you can't make a decision, it's good to get like different perspectives and on that and talk to different people and get a variety of like input, but at the ultimately like you know you use that information to make the decision for yourself as well. Then even for like you know we're talking mentorship and mentee, like I as always try to you know empower the person that is like looking for me to mentorship, whether it was like you know in sports, in school, you know, even my younger siblings and stuff like that. It's like you know you have the tools there. It's just kind of you know making sure they all line up and building that confidence within the person. And it's something that I strongly would recommend. Definitely like you know don't put all your eggs in one basket with one person, right? Like definitely have like that mosaic like you as you mentioned earlier, and it'll help you get farther. Just kind of summarize my thoughts. It's kind of like this proverb I've always heard: if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone.
Yeah. And I think also too, like when you have that sort of like team environment, like you kind of, again, more ideas, more perspectives, and those different things kind of like those things help. And I feel like now, like again, kind of clouded by this, you know, you have to work alone in order to get to where you need to be. But no, having again this mosaic of a network can really help. And in the next question, we're going to kind of change gears into kind of more focusing on the management program. But I would like to know, what advice would you give a smart, driven management student about to graduate and enter the real world? Laura, would you like to start off?
Sure, I would. That's a really great question. I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give to someone who's driven, I mean, you're going to go far regardless because you're innately driven, because you've worked hard. That piece itself, that's going to take you far. So the advice that I would say would be to follow your passion, because you don't want to be spending your time and your energy doing something that is constantly providing maybe like negative feedback or resistance or something that you just don't simply enjoy doing. Find something that you like to do, that you love to do, that you have a passion for, maybe something that you have a hobby for, because at the end of the day, right, this is the time that we have, and it ends at some point. So I mean, our work is kind of our vocation. It's what we're here to do. So make it count for you.
Yeah, and I like always think of that because like you spend so much of your time working that you might as well like really love and enjoy what you do.
Absolutely.
Jen, would you like to add anything?
I mean, I think Laura said it really, really well. And, you know, I guess we're both probably in our 30s, Laura. I don't know, I'm speaking for myself in my 30s. Yep. And, you know, like, what's the best advice? I'd say I don't want to give any bad advice, because then I'd like to give good advice. So what is good advice? It always goes back to everything we've talked about today, which you just have to follow your heart and trust that there is some grand design. And as much as you try and anticipate and predict it, some things just unfold and doors open and you can't even see them opening. And when you're open, just know which door is a one-way door and which way is a two-way door, right? If you step in there and you're going to go, fine. But if you can go and try, and then you can also get back out and you know, pivot and tweak your career path, that's great. And also don't succumb to the pressure that, you know, often people say these are sort of the career paths you have to go down. This is the track. And here's where you're going to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You'll find that if that works for you, that's great. And you can live that path in a very honest way. But if it doesn't work, have the strength, have the integrity, have the knowledge, have the commitment to say, look, I got to do something else, because life is short, right? And Laura said, health is important. You're important. What you do is important. You have the luxury of a great degree at Dell. We can all say that as graduates. Just use that, and you're already in a great position. And now you just got to figure out what to do with that position.
Yeah, and that can be scary sometimes, realizing that like you have to like change directions. Like, did you have like any sort of fear in terms of, having to change?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I went down a very traditional path. I left Dal. I worked for a little bit, went did my MBA, and then I worked at one of the big four consulting firms. Right, on paper, what would be more admirable than that? And then I left my job, didn't have a salary for 2 years, and started my own business. And I started it 2 years before the pandemic happened. So my business went from 100 to 0, back up to 50 to 20 to 100, and it bounces back. Everyone's kind of nodding their head, right? So if you're
Yeah.
looking for a path of certainty, and that's what works for you, that's fine. But for me, it was about purpose, and I think it was said really well when Laura said, if your purpose and your true sort of set self are not in alignment, there's going to be a friction, and you're going to feel uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, and you got to get back to what your center of gravity is.
Yeah. And I think that's just so, again, I think that's so important for students to know, because again, it's kind of getting out of that mold of, this is what I have to do, and just going with, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what motivates me, and kind of running with that and seeing where it goes almost.
Yeah.
Sagar, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just to kind of touch up what Jen was saying, like, in times of uncertainty breeds opportunity, right? And you really kind of figure out what you value the most when you're in a time of uncertainty. And kind of getting back to the main part of the question here, I would strongly recommend students to like establish a network and a personal brand. And what I mean by that is, every day you're sitting in a classroom and you're sitting amongst your peers, you're sitting in front of your professors, like, people are above you, like people that are below you in like this organizational chart, right? And each and every day you're developing a reputation, right? So if you're kind of, dragging your feet every day and kind of, not really participative, or like, not really grabbing life by the horns per se, right? Like that's what people are naturally going to see of you, right? But if you're coming in and you're engaged and you're always trying to put your best foot forward, even if you get the answer wrong, you know what I mean? When you put your hand up, people take notice, because that's how you kind of build up your reputation, and people are willing to place a bet on you because you're busting your hump and always trying to put your best foot forward. This applies to the workforce as well, right? Where it's like, just because you get hired in the marketing department doesn't mean you necessarily just have to hang out with the marketing people and stuff like that, right? Like establish your network within the organization, right? Like go talk to different departments, meet different people, and like, show them that like, you're keen and you're engaged and you want to help, and you always want to, again, put your best foot forward.
Yeah. And I feel like that's so true in terms of like, would you agree that you never know what direction your career is going? Like you might say, oh, okay, like I really like marketing right now, but then you realize that your passions maybe lie elsewhere due to some exploration.
Yes, exactly. Like I'll save it for the later question, but I experienced that myself 100%. Like you may think like, that you want to graduate with the Bachelor of Management program, you want to work for the big four for the next like, 20, 40 years. But then at some point, you realize that, hey, I really want to, branch off on my own and bet on myself. And, are you going to, at 65, are you going to regret, betting on yourself, or are you going to regret not taking that opportunity, right? I myself would kind of regret not taking the opportunity to bet on myself.
I like that. So this kind of, I know we kind of touched upon this, but I would like to know, what was the hardest lesson that you had to learn early on in your career? Laura, would you like to start off?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. This is relevant to this kind of time period, the last 20 months or so, but I think it's mostly that things just aren't ever going to end up how you imagine them to be. And so to take yourself out of that attachment to the end result and refocus to each day instead. So take your macro view. I mean, it's still going to ebb and flow along that view, but take yourself away from being attached to everything specifically, and allow yourself the time and the grace to live each moment as it is, and to make decisions in real time, like in the present moment. Because from my personal experience, we've been shut down 3 times, and I didn't expect that to happen, right? So it's more so how can I make the best decisions in this moment, and then the end result will just happen. That's just going to happen anyway because you're doing the work now. Not you're doing the work in 5 years, you're doing the work now, and it will come. It's just you have to take that attachment to it, step away from it, refocus, and then also trust, which is a hugely difficult task for me because I am an A-type person and I like to have control over everything. But you have to trust because you've done everything you can do. There's nothing else you can do. And so you just have to trust that things will work out, especially circling back to the alignment of purpose and drive, right? And integrity. It's those characteristics that will allow you to succeed if you let it, right? If you take yourself away from that attachment.
And I feel like it's hard because I feel like we live in such a goal-oriented place that you feel that you have to have like the end result and this is what's going to happen. So would you say that that even plays a role in being challenging of having to, work to this end result?
Absolutely. My value is derived based on this thing that I produce, right? I am worth something because I've done this, X, Y, Z, right? But that's not like, you have to take your ego out of the equation completely. And you just need to put it like, humble yourself. You need to put in the work. You need to show up every day. Like Sagar said earlier, right? Like it's the showing up how you want to show up in that moment, not the dragging your feet of, but okay, here are my opportunities today, even though they're not what I want them to look like. I'm still going to take advantage of them. I'm still going to do the work that I can in right now. And, just see what happens. And then the next day do the same thing. And then the next day do the same thing.
Yeah. I like that. Jen, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any sort of wise or philosophical things to add in terms of these earth-shattering things of what I've learned. But I think the one thing that I've learned, and especially goes back to your ego, is that not everyone is going to like you and like what you do, right? And you go through life gathering these circles, these communities of practice or interest or social circles, and then you go out in the world and you develop this sort of naivety around if you do something and you're committed to it and you feel like that's what you need to do, sometimes people are going to disagree with you and you're not going to find that support in every corner. And that's okay. You just have to believe in your heart of hearts that it's the right path. It's the right, it's the right way to do things. It's aligned with your values. You can sleep at night. And it's okay if not everybody likes you. And that's a hard reality to face, especially on your team. But it's a reality you will face. And that's totally fine.
And is that like challenging to get like projects and things done when there is that kind of tension almost?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you have to say like, look, folks, there's something behind here. There's a place we're going. There's factors you can't see. And you just have to trust me, right? And you can try and bring them into the how, what, why along the way as much as you can. But sometimes it's about speed and getting to a decision. You have to make a decision and you have to sort of have the team rally around you. And not everyone's going to rally around you and cheer for you and support you. Yeah. That's part of carving a path. Is sometimes there's a uncharted territory where you don't have full support and buy-in, and you just have to trust yourself.
Yeah, and I feel like we talked a lot in this discussion today about trust and believing in you and going back to just knowing that person and to again give yourself a pat on the back at the end of the day. Sagar, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just something really quickly like that. No, Laura and Jen mentioned it too. It's you aren't paid for ideas, you're paid for results, right? Like it's in school and academia, right? It's all about learning the theory and understanding why things the way they are and stuff like that. But when you get into real world, right? Like theory is great, but if you can't have that application component to that, like you're almost like missing like 9/10 of the situation, right?
Yeah, no, that's so true. So we are slowly coming to the end of this panel. Is there anything the three of you would like to add or any closing remarks, anything pressing that anyone would like to say? Laura, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, I will cycle it back to because this is a management panel that I would say in my journey of kind of where I've ended up right now, I would 1000% take this degree again. I feel like it was such a great structure for everything that came my way. I felt like it was diverse enough that I got to experience everything, you know, that I needed to in terms of a practical application and theoretical applications. But it also like gave me the confidence to believe in myself, to be able to do the things that I wanted to do. So yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what I love about the program so far, is that it's so diverse. And I feel like I'm learning so many different things, and it's allowing me to explore my interests. So I feel like that's what I like about it too. Jen, anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, the management program, you know, living in Halifax, being on the East Coast, it's a great experience, great culture, really helps to shape you as a leader, and you can't go wrong with the interdisciplinary skill set that you're learning in the management program, right? And the commerce programs. There's such a great institution at Dell, and you know, I can say that because it shaped me into part of who I am today. But in terms of when you get on the other side of this, especially as things recover and the opportunities aren't there, remember that the challenges are opportunities in disguise. And just remember that there is sometimes going to be challenges along the way, and there is a mountain you have to climb, and don't expect to be at the top of the mountain day one. There is a distance between where you are at the bottom and where you're going to be at the top, and you have to climb it. You're going to fall. You're going to take different paths. Sometimes you might get lost, but as long as you have vision and you have the foresight and you have the perseverance and conviction to get to the top, that's what's going to keep you going.
I really like that. To keep going no matter what.
It's all you can do. It's literally all you can do.
No, it's so true. And I feel like, you know, it's easy. It can kind of cloud your memory sometimes, or not even your memory, but it's easy to kind of get lost in that trap of wanting to give up and losing direction and all that kind of stuff. Sagar, anything that you would like to add? Closing remarks?
Yeah, just kind of closing remarks. I'll just tell a little story about my final year in my undergrad, right? You know, I was working a co-op job actually at for the CR MBA program with the Department of Management Career Services. During that time, you know, I'm juggling my application to law school, the part-time job, you know, the co-op job and classes, and, you know, trying to make sure I graduate on time, and, you know, make sure all my I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And kind of like the best investment I made in my undergrad was attending the Sloan Analytics Sports Analytics Conference at MIT. You know, so I was surrounded by, you know, all the top professional leagues, you know, you name it, like they were there, and it kind of opened my mind to an area that I was already interested in, and kind of where I'm at right now in data science and data analytics. Right, it's the irony is the year I graduated in 2019, the next following years, the management program introduces a data component to the Bachelor of Management program. Right, so just my luck. But I guess what I'm trying to reiterate is, you know, if you always have a growth mindset and always like are understanding of what's going on around you and like follow your passions, and, you know, not necessarily like, you know, stick to that one set path like you've had from your first year and go all the way through, like it kind of defeats the purpose of, like, you know, attending a program like this, because you're introduced to so many different parts and interdisciplinaries of business, and like you'll figure out what you're passionate about, you know, by the end of it. And if not, like, you definitely want to reach out to networks, to your network, and talk to your professors, talk to your peers, because this is how you kind of like figure things out. And you know, just because you write your final exam and you get your bachelor's degree and you think it's like the learning is over, it's truly not. And having a growth mindset is very important, because each and every day the world's changing. Each and every day, like, you know, something new might ignite your passion. And you know, if you're being able to be adaptable to your environments and like understand what's going on around you, and critically think about that, you're definitely going to find yourself on a richer and more rewarding career path than you initially thought.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much to the three of you. I loved being able to be the host of this. I really enjoyed it. Well, I had a wonderful time, and I just want to thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.